Hello and welcome to the ProgressivA podcast. ProgressivA is a European think tank exploring new ways of communicating political ideas. We aim to shape a new identity for European progressives and offer concrete solutions to social issues. We're a grassroots think tank shaped democratically by our members. You can read more and join us if you like at www.progressivamagazine.com. So on today's podcast, I want to welcome Federico Quadrelli, a PhD student in sociology who's living in Berlin. Hi. Living in Berlin, but running for the Italian parliament. So just for our listeners, Italians residing overseas are able to elect representatives for 4 overseas electoral districts. So there's North America, South America, Europe, and the rest of the world. And Federico is running for Europe. So welcome, Federico. Could you tell us a little more about yourself, about your research, perhaps, before we discuss why you're running for parliament in Italy?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for your invitation. And I must apologize because my English is not the language that I use mostly. In Germany, I must learn German first. So thank you very much for this opportunity. As you said, I studied sociology in Italy. Then the economic situation was so bad that I decided to invest on myself because we have no other chance. And I moved. I arrived in Berlin where I worked, but not speaking German and with a very bad English. I had to make a decision. So go back to the university where I did a second degree in European studies in English and German. Then I won a research grant for a PhD to the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung. And the topic of my research is the right-wing populism and radicalism and young people in Italy and Germany, because are the context that I know most. At the same time, I have always been politically active in Italy as well as in Germany, and is the reason why I am also candidate. I have experienced precariousness and insecurity at the first hand. I don't come from a rich family, so I always had to work in order to be able to study and win scholarship because, as I said, money, we have no money. My political commitment is to contribute in my own small way as much as I can to create a fair world. I believe I can give a voice to those who have never had one, such as young people, for example, who have always been something extra in the Italian political discussion, which means everyone speak about future, but no one is interested to take to hear the young people. So after all, isn't the future theirs for young people? Is the reason why I decided to candidate and to run for political election.
So it sounds like you have a lot of values in common with ProgressivA. We're very happy to speak with you, of course, and your English is impeccable, certainly much better than my Italian, so please don't worry. But I mean, yeah, so I suppose your values of connecting with young people, thinking about talking to them about what the future should look like, their future, but also a real grassroots perspective. I suppose it's not common for all politicians, but not an uncommon starting point to want to connect with people at a local level. But I guess the unusual thing about you as a politician, of course, is that you're associated or active in the Italian politics, in the Italian Democratic Party, all the way from Berlin, which is where you're living now, right? So what's the reason to have those political associations abroad, those more distant I don't know, connections, if you given that you are coming from such a grassroots perspective, right?
Yes, that's right. And in fact, I consider myself as a transnational political activist, which is exactly what I am. I've always been politically engaged in Italy and in Germany, and then in Italy, or better to say, for Italy from Berlin. I was the chairman of the local group in Berlin, PD Berlin and Brandenburg, and now I'm the co-chair of the German Federation PD group. And I'm active also by the SPD, the German political party. The point of having this international political network is that there are more than 6 million Italians abroad. And those persons need to be supported, and else they have also the right to be represented in parliament. It's a constitutional right, is so in our constitution. And for me, is also, moreover, a fundamental piece of commitment in order to create a real political Europe. Because what is the perspective? We are activists in Germany, in Italy, in UK, or other countries. And our goal, my goal, is to create this Europe.
Yeah. So you're involved both with the SPD in Germany and the PD in Italy, and I suppose I mean, it makes sense that parties that perhaps share values also share issues and can help kind of collaborate on solutions and so on. And as you say, this kind of, I suppose I should say that I'm coming from the perspective of an Australian who has been living abroad, including in Europe for many years, and I actually I don't have the right to vote back home anymore, right? So to me, when I first heard that there were these overseas constituencies for Italians living abroad, I thought it was quite strange. But the way that you speak about it, of course, it makes sense. If you have 6 million Italians living in Europe or abroad.
No, abroad. In Europe, we are, I'm not sure, but between 2.5 and 3 million.
Of course, it makes, well, it's right to have their interests represented at home, right? But as a member of the Italian parliament who's elected to represent these Italians who are living abroad, do you have any, I suppose, particular duties that are different from a regular MP or delegate?
Well, in my opinion, we have two fundamental functions, which is the first is to represent the interests of this vast and diverse community by history, by need, and by education, because it's complicated. There are problems related to access to basic services, healthcare, or paying taxes, because it's quite complicated. I cannot explain in detail, but if you are an Italian abroad and you are registered by this AIRE, which is the register for Italian who are living abroad, we lose our health insurance in Italy, which is a universal basis, and which means you have to receive the healthcare of the country where you are living, Germany, UK, France, and so on. But for people, elderly people, it's quite complicated. It's not easy as for the young people. And then there are other component, which is to invest in the role of this person, of this community, because I think we have a strategic role to play, not only in refer to culture, fashion, something like that, explicitly economically, because we are in the institution, we are in the research field, we do business, we sponsor the name of Italy everywhere. And I think it's really strategic, and Italian politics has to understand this. And the second function is that I want, I recognize myself, especially in this function, to be a sort of bridge between those realities and experiences, because Italy has everything to gain from our experiences. Creating cooperation networks between countries, parties, communities offers immense benefits, in my opinion, even for national politics, and much more for European politics, which is the reason why I said I want to invest also in create a political Europe.
So this is, I mean, it's a complex role then, because you're representing Italians abroad and trying to do something for the whole population of Italians, not only in Italy, but those abroad, but for the benefit of Italy, I suppose, and Italians. but also, you know, having these transnational goals too. So you described yourself earlier as a transnational activist.
I do.
Yeah, it's a big job. I mean, let's talk a little more about the practicalities of what it is that you're doing, right? So tell us a little bit about how long this campaign is that you have to run. I mean, and how do you go about shaping a campaign, about identifying your priorities when you're trying to attract votes, but also trying to represent the interests of, as you say, such a big and diverse electoral district, right? I mean, do you have time to talk to people when you're traveling around during the campaign?
Well, campaign on an entire continent in 3 weeks is humanly maybe impossible. This is why networks built over the years with groups, people, of course, is the basic. You need a background. And of course, the tools, digital tools are really important, such as Zoom. For instance, we can speak, we are in different countries. I can meet people virtually, but I don't do just that. Of course, I cannot be in Lisbon as well as in Vladivostok or in other countries. So if there is the possibility to meet community with Zoom or Facebook, very well, it's great. But in my area, Berlin, Brandenburg, Germany, completely Germany, well, I try to do a lot of door-to-door because I want to present myself. I want to say to the people who I am and give personally my flyer to those people. And the reaction, I began since 3 days, 4 days, door to door, and they are surprised because they say, oh, well, we never see a candidate for Italian parliament for Italian abroad in 18 years. I said, okay, well, I try to meet people also. It's not easy. I cannot do in 3 weeks, as I said, in an entire continent, but in Berlin, for instance, is my goal. I want to meet people to share experience and know what they think about our role. And of course, it costs a lot. And the costs are mostly personal costs. I have to pay by myself. And it's the reason why I'm doing also a fundraising campaign, because also 50 euros donate for this campaign, they can make difference because we can buy a ticket for a train or organize an online campaign with card and so on. It's really complicated, but it's a mix of elements. And as I said, for me, it's really important to meet people also and to speak with them.
Yeah, so again, it's the campaign itself is also dual. You're kind of doing aspects of maybe a more traditional grassroots door-to-door campaign alongside this digital and massive travel effort as well, right? Would you like to say something about your priorities for your campaign?
Yes, the priority are in my flyer, young people, rights, civil rights, and environment. There are much more, of course. Those are key concepts, but underpinning them are European policies, labor policies, with the introduction of the minimum wage in Italy, for instance, because that doesn't exist. Investment in education and health care, of course. Policy for a socially and environmentally sustainable economy, which mean collect our experiences as Italian abroad. For instance, in Germany is really important the topic minimum wage, as well as education and training in professional fields. And those are the two aspects which I think are the most important also for young people, but not only for young people. So there are a lot of element of goals I wish to reach, but those three words are the key words. And civil right, of course, because I want a more tolerant and inclusive society, which means same-sex marriage also in Italy, a reform of the adoption rules, and of course, a very strong battle against discrimination, which means not only LGBT people, but also against minorities and women, because we have a lot of problem about women's rights in Italy as well. And of course, equality and fairness are the value of my program in every field of action. So it's the philosophy. I want a more equal and fair society where everyone has the chance to create their own path.
And I guess, I mean, all of this sounds exactly in line with what we like to think about and talk about at ProgressivA, right? How have you? I mean, how's the sort of response that you've got with some of the people that you're talking to? I mean, how do they see you implementing these priorities? Or I guess I'm trying to understand how your priorities for Italy and Europe fit together with the interests of the individuals that you represent, right? Who are Italians abroad. So do you see yourself as implementing kind of specific reforms to help or to you talked earlier, for instance, about like health insurance not being available to Italians abroad, right? So would that be an example of a kind of concrete thing that you could pursue that's in line with these broad priorities? Or...
Well, I hope so. Of course, I hope to be able to change a lot of things. Of course, we have to understand how the institution is working in Italy. No, the government and then the parliament. There are commissions where parliamentary people can work, and so it's not so easy. It's not just because I want to do something that I can alone reach these results, but. And is the reason why I put more specific light on the issue Europe, because we are in Europe. We are, unfortunately, UK is not in Europe anymore in our union. So Brexit was for me a big problem. A crash against this dream, because I'm really deeply convinced that European Union is the positive future for every one of us. And this means we have to reach in some point, somewhen, a common level of insurance agreement where Italian or French people, Spanish people, German people, is not important the nationality anymore, but you have the same rights everywhere. So, and it's not possible that people, Italian people, now in this moment, just because they are Italian abroad, they cannot have the same right of the other people in Italy. And it's really complicated. We have the representative institutions on the local level in Europe, which is the committees. For instance, they decide to change the way we have to vote to elect those committees. And it's not fair because we have to register ourselves previously if you want to exercise our vote right. It's not okay. And the same things is about health insurance, poverty. There are a lot of people who are working abroad and they cannot afford a dignity. I don't know how to explain that. Life with dignity, just because they don't earn enough in Italy as well in other countries. So it's natürlich, sorry, I spoke in German, as I said. It's the first language, and now I have problem to connect to create a link. I think exactly this opportunity to bring in Italian politics the relationship we built up in the years with other countries, parties, organizations, and so on. Together with our experiences, we can make a great difference, not just for Italy, but for Europe. Why? Because as Italian politician elected to represent Italian approach, I have to take in account the European level. I have to push the Italian politics in other ways, in more European-oriented way of thinking. And progressive political parties can do that. I'm really afraid if the results are that the far right, and I don't speak about fascismus or something like that. No, far right, populist rights parties are in power. In Italy, those parties, they definitely don't want to empower Europe project. They want to create maybe, I don't know, a more differentiated European Union, which more independence, and that means exclusion. That doesn't mean inclusion, and it's exactly the opposite way I'm thinking. Specifically, I want to change a lot of things. First of all, as I said, minimum wage in Italy, because we have to give dignity to the work. Every work is okay. Every work has to be paid in the right way. It's not acceptable to have paid 3 or 2, 3, 4 euro per hour. It's not in ordnung. It's not okay, as we said in German. It's not fair. It's not equal, and it's an injustice. And it's the reason why I put so much energy on this topic, social as well as civil rights. Those are really the key points.
Yeah, and the way you talked about this issue of health insurance, for instance, now, you need not only to take the European Union and the European level into account, but the European Union can be a way of solving the issue or addressing the issue, coming to a European solution, for instance, for insurance for all, the same standards of insurance can be a solution. I mean, and would you see a European minimum wage as something that could help Italy as a way to get to that resolution for Italians in Italy as well as Italians abroad?
Well, there is already a resolution in this way about minimum wage, and is the reason why it's very bad that Italy has not create a policy about that. Italy has to do that. They didn't. Yeah. And of course, we need a European citizenship, which means we have to build up a Europe really not only economically integrated, culturally, socially, politically. And we are far away from this goal. We have to work a lot now because, as you know, the way the European Union is working now is giving a lot of power to the states. And this is the problem. It's not, of course, something that an elected in Europe, in Italian parliament can change. But as I said, we can create network. We can build up a coalition between parties. And this is also something that I want to do between Italy and Germany, for instance, with SPD and PD. And when we are together in this position, we can generate something of European level, because in the European Parliament, we are together in the same family, S&D. So we can cooperate much better and we can reach much better goals together, because in the last years, something is better, something is not so bad as in the past, but we are really far away from our goals. So we need more integration between political parties, association, people. And I think this opportunity for Italian abroad to have representative elected in the Italian parliament can make a difference, not only for Italian, but also for other people around Europe, and for people they want to be in Europe and they are yet not. I don't know how to explain that. correctly.
Yeah.
Or maybe you United Kingdom someday want to be back. I don't know. We have to work together. There is no other solution.
And as you say, it's not just about kind of stopping the tide of far-right nationalism and the shift sort of away. It's also about building something more positive, about connections between parties across borders and solving our problems together, right? Because we face
Absolutely.
the same issues and we're stronger together.
Definitely,
Would you like
we
to
are strong.
say would you like to say anything else about your campaign, or speak to our listeners about what you're trying to achieve and maybe how they could help?
I want to say my slogan is Il futuro è ora, which means the future is now. And it's exactly what I said and trying to explain. We have to participate. I invite everyone to vote and to participate to this election, because there is something more in, I don't know how to explain, it's something more, much more than us. So if Italy has not a progressive coalition in government, the entire European Union has to to prove what doesn't mean to have a far-right government. So I hope my topics, my program is online, is every time in disposal. Everyone can contact me and suggest something to improve this program. I'm open to every kind of interaction. I'm really happy to be the opportunity to discuss with people around Europe. And yes, I hope to receive your trust. You have to vote not just the party, but you have to write the name, which is really complicated to explain. But yes, something about the list, the symbol of the logo, and then you have to write down the name, because we have this kind of system, and just the person who receive much preferences, the name can pass. So I invite you, everyone, to support me, to support the Progressive Coalition for Italy and for Europe.
That's wonderful to hear. Thanks again to our listeners for joining us at the ProgressivA podcast. Again, if you'd like to know more about us, if you'd like to join us, you can find us at www.progressivamagazine.com. Thanks again.